everyone, and we're live.
Oh, hi. Hi, good morning. Good
Hey,
afternoon, good evening. How are you, Brian?
I'm fine, thanks. And you, Stephanie?
Great, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to be here live on YouTube and all over the world. So it's great.
Yes, yes. Well, let's start with some introductions. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Brian.
Well, I'm Brian. I am a principal and enterprise architect living in Denmark, a part of an organization called Fellowmind. I'm also a Microsoft MVP on the data platform. And if you like to hook up, then you can find my LinkedIn address right there in the bottom.
Right, super. I am Stephanie Bruno. I'm coming at you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the US. So if you are an American football fan, I'm in Steelers country. I actually don't care about that, but that's what Pittsburgh is known for. I'm also a BI architect and a data platform MVP. I work at iLink Digital, and you can find my contact info here on LinkedIn as well. So let's meet our moderators.
Our moderators, yes, they are live chatting with you on YouTube, and they will be moderating the entire chat. We are so delightful to welcome both Rubaiyat Yasmin and Askia Gunnarsson as our moderators for today. They are both data nerds as we are, and will help you answer all of your questions as fast as they possibly can. Some of the questions will be forwarded to us live on this session, and if we're lucky enough, we will have enough questions coming in so we can answer them in good time.
Yes, thank you so much to the moderators. We're so grateful for their time today.
Yes.
All right, so let's jump in. So what are we covering here today? We are going to go through the first two modules in the Get Started with Microsoft Fabric learning path. You can see them both here on the screen. The first one is the introduction to end-to-end analytics using Fabric. This one does not have an exercise, but we're just going to give you a whole overview of Fabric. The second one, which is getting started with Lakehouses, this is going to provide us info on the concept of Lakehouses in Fabric, and this one does include an exercise that Brian's going to be walking you through. So you can either just watch us go through the steps right now, check out the chat, ask questions, and then you can go through it yourself later, or you can follow along with us today. So whichever way you want to do it, whichever way works for you, that's great. And then also, as Brian mentioned, we have our moderators here. So this is one of the big benefits of participating with us live today, which is that you can put your questions in the chat and you can get expert answers. I know for me, sometimes in a large group, I feel embarrassed or I don't want to look stupid by asking a question, but there are no such thing as stupid questions, and we're all here to learn together and help each other out. Also note that this live Q&A is not going to be included in the recording of the session. So you can still put any questions in there, but that's not going to be included. So if you do want to watch it later and have questions, feel free to put those in the comments and we'll try to get back to you in the comments later. Anything
Yes.
to add there, Brian?
No, I just think that people should not restrain themselves on questions and comments. Just keep the chat live and please be respectful to each other and concur to the code of conduct in the top of the chat just released by our moderators. So.
Yeah, super. Okay, great. Thank you. So then we just have a few intro slides, some resources you can take advantage of, some housekeeping, and then we'll get right into the details here. So to start with, there are a bunch of great opportunities related to Fabric and your career. And the first one we're going to talk about here is the Fabric Career Hub. So this is a great place to help guide your learning, your certification path. Also, you can see some interesting stories from some of our wonderful community members like Shabnam here. And this also provides more information on the different roles that Microsoft sees in the modern data landscape, particularly this analytics engineer. And then finally, there are all these little links in here to help you on your certification journey. We're going to talk about the Cloud Skills Challenge in a second. And then step 2, which is what we are at today, is the Learn Together. We'll also talk about the exam cram, step 3. Step 4, right here it says coming soon, but if you go to the Career Hub, you can see that link up at the top, aka.ms/Fabric Career Hub. you'll see that that one is actually live. So you can jump into the practice tests now. And then finally, you can schedule your exam for the DP 600. So we'll talk a little bit more about the details for that exam as well. So first, we just mentioned this, the tile about the Cloud Skills Challenge. So you can always go back to that Career Hub if you want to find the Cloud Skills Challenge really easily, or there's this short link up here at the top, Fabric 30 DTLI, that stands for 30 days to learn it. So pretty easy to remember. So you can go there if you want to sign up for this challenge. They do change. There is actually one right now that expires, I think, on Thursday. So it expires in 3 days, but that one will get you 100% exam discount if you go through all 13 modules. So if you've got time in the next couple days and you want to get a free exam voucher, speed through those 13 modules. You may have already completed some. Like I know for myself, I completed 12 of them in January. So then for this latest challenge, all I needed to do was go and do that 13th one to get that 100% off exam voucher. So there's a bunch of rules. They keep providing these challenges. So if you don't have time right now to, finish it by Thursday, don't worry. There's this other 50% off one available as well. Do you have any advice on the
Yeah, I
challenge?
completed the challenge a few months ago, and then I revisited it in like 2 weeks ago, and then I said, hey, I have new modules that I didn't do, so please keep on revisiting the challenge, because new modules will be added as we go along. I don't know when they will be done. Right now, as you said, we have 13, and just keep on learning. It's a great way to learn Fabric. So.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. Yeah, so these 13 modules, these are a really important step if you are interested in taking this exam and getting the Fabric Analytics Engineer certification. They're not going to show you everything you need to know, but you will need to know everything in them. So that's why we have a few more resources that we want to share with you about that. So an upcoming one is this exam cram coming up on May 8th. So feel free to register for that, join that session. That's going to show you some sample questions, time management tips. I know I needed that when I took the exam. It was kind of a panic-inducing experience for me.
Yeah.
So this exam cram can be really helpful. I do have a few other resources that I want to share related to the exam. So like I mentioned, you do need to get through all the modules and understand everything in the modules, but there's more also. So let's just take a look. Let me jump over. So I've got the Career Hub here. And remember, if you go to the Career Hub, you can just click on all of these links, and this will show you some resources to get ready. But also, if you just search for exam DP 600 in whatever search engine you prefer, you'll get to this page right here. This is the overview page for the exam, and it'll show you some top level information about it, how to schedule it, the overview of the skills measured. But then right here, this tip, which is the study guide, this is highly important if you're interested in this. So I have this on the next page here. This is going to break down everything you need to know in the exam. So if I scroll down a little bit, you can see these are those top level skills again, but then it breaks it down into even more detail. And so the reason I wanted to point this out is because you may notice if you go through all the modules, for example, there isn't anything on DAX. But if we go down to, I think, implement and manage semantic models, that's about a quarter of the exam. So you want to make sure that you have those skills as well, that you've maybe gone and done some other modules related to DAX, for example. And then finally, there are a couple other really helpful resources from the community. Our friend Nicola, Data Mozart, he's always posting about DP 600 certification. So check him out. And then also Kevin Chant. So both of these community members post a lot of helpful information about how to prepare for the exam. Anything to add about that, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that for the first time in Microsoft's history, we are also being asked about third-party tools like Tableau Editor for an exam. So it is not only Fabric; it is also, you will also be questioned on on how to use Tabular Editor, where to use it, and what good it is in a Fabric content. So please also remember to look at the Tabular Editor thing when you're preparing for your exam.
Yes, for sure. So just to quick recap, go through all of these Learn Together sessions this week and next week. Do the exam cram, do the Cloud Skills Challenge, get your voucher, but make sure you look at all of the other resources too. And then finally, just to recap, today, this is what we're going for, which is to get started with end-to-end analytics. But this is the upcoming schedule for the rest of the episodes this week. We're going to be touching a little bit on Delta Lake tables today, but don't miss the next session on that, which is on Thursday. All of these sessions are going to be the content that's in the modules, but you get the bonus of these expert moderators and presenters that are going to share tips and tricks and experience with you about their learning along the way.
Yes. And if you're lucky, you might stumble upon Nikola Illich in one of these. I think, if I don't remember wrongly, it is tomorrow he's on stage live.
Oh, super. Awesome. Well, I won't miss that one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that's all the housekeeping. That's the background. And then now I think we can jump into module 1. Brian's going to take us through the first module today.
Yes, and if you would love to follow along, then the link was just on the slide right there. If we are lucky enough, then the producer will also show the link on screen. Then you can follow along in a ticker. But Learn Live 2024-02-20G, and then you're good to go. There you go. The ticker is online now. Then you can follow along for this short introduction on what is Fabric and how do I use it in an end-to-end analytics situation going forward. So let's go along and look at the learning objectives for this course. You will learn how to describe an end-to-end analytics in Microsoft Fabric. So that is more or less putting into words what is Microsoft Fabric and why is it there in a data platform universe and what does it actually do, and also being able to describe some of the core features and capabilities of Lakehouses in Microsoft Fabric. In Fabric, we can do two types of data storage methods. You can do either Lakehouse or Warehouse, and today we will touch upon the first initial things about the Lakehouse, and you will be prepared on how to do that. And also we will go through how to create a Lakehouse and how to load data files into the Lakehouse also, and how to actually query the Lakehouse, because you can use it with a SQL, but there's also other ways of doing that. And I will perhaps break a bit out of the learning objective here and show you some tips and tricks on how to do it. And the next is, Fabric. What is Fabric? Fabric was released last year, right after a huge international conference, released in a public preview, and was in GA last summer. And Fabric is an end-to-end analytics platform that provides a single integrated environment for data professionals and the business to collaborate on data projects. Perhaps this sentence is a good sentence to remember later on in this live session, because you might get questions, you might not get questions, no one knows. And of course the Fabric platform also handles some problems that we see in the organizations today. So it can of course handle various amounts of data, unlimited amount of data, and integration with whatever source you have. And if the source that you have right now is not yet supported by Fabric, please go to the Fabric roadmap on aks.ms/Fabric roadmap. Then you will see what is upcoming within the next 6 to 12 months, and then you will be preparing on if your specific data source is going to be enabled in Fabric. And of course,
I was just going to say, I can't keep up with all the changes. I get a lot of questions about, is this supported? And I always have to go back and double check, because
yes,
they're addressing so many of these questions and issues so quickly. So a lot of things are getting added. There's a lot of investment in Fabric. So that Fabric roadmap is super helpful to know
Keep
what's
revisiting
recently
it, because
come out.
it is updated all the time. Yeah. And if we talk about normal data platforms, data warehousing, reporting solutions, and on those historically seen, we most often copied the data several times across our platform, and we also moved it a lot around the platform to get to the final golden part, or whatever you would call it. Some call it bronze, silver, gold. Some call it, I don't know, curated. Different names for the same thing.
Like
That is
whatever golden
also
part.
handled
I'm sticking with
inside
that.
Fabric. Sorry, Stephanie.
I like how you said it, the golden part, whatever golden part you call it. That's the new name for it for me.
Yeah. But we still have old people like me calling it curated or data marts or whatever name you have for it. So yeah. And we also saw historically a lot of fragmentation in the data platforms all around the organizations, where you had a main compartment with an enterprise data warehouse, and then you might have small satellites all around your organization. This is one of the things that Fabric is also trying to come around. So how do we do an end-to-end analytics in Microsoft Fabric? Microsoft Fabric consists of, I think it's 7. It depends on how you look at it. 7 or 8 services. Perhaps you have seen this slide a lot in the last couple of months. I hope so. But if you're new, then Fabric is an umbrella of 7 main services, from data integration through data engineering, data warehouse, and data science. And then we have the real-time analytics, the Custo part, the visualization, Power BI, and lastly the data activator thing, which actually reacts to the data coming in, and then can send you an email, send you a Teams message, or start another process in Power Automate, or just call an API and then make things happen based on what you're doing. If we start in the data integration part, then this is where the Azure Data Factory lookalike engine is incorporated. It is completely rewritten to fit into Fabric. So if you have something that you're doing in Azure Data Factory today, then you might not be able to do that today in Fabric, but things are moving quite fast in Fabric, as Stephanie just told us. So it might be on the roadmap if you go and search for it. The data engineering part is a Spark-based platform, where you are using your notebook skills, Spark, PySpark, PySQL, and all those other languages to transform and load and clean and whatever you're doing with your data. You do that in the notebook part there. We have the data warehousing is actually the old, not to be compared to the old Synapse data warehouse. It is not the same thing, even though the underlying Polaris engine is still there to help you read and write all the files. And in the warehouse, you can also now create table statements. You can load data through the SQL language knowledge that you already have. So the transitions to Fabric should be minor. In data science, of course, you can do Azure Machine Learning. Again, you can use Spark for training and for all your experiments. And you can also, with MLflow, look at what is being done on my machine learning models in a governance lookalike way. Real-time analytics, to query live streaming data, events, telemetry, IoT devices through the Fabric universe, and then provide real-time insights through Power BI on visualizations and reporting. Then we hit into Power BI. I hope you know Power BI, the great visualization tool and reporting tool from from Microsoft, which helps you to visualize the data in an easy read way. I quickly touched upon Data Activator. It reacts to your data, and it can react based on thresholds. So if a value goes beyond 50 or something, then it can react to whatever things are going on. Underneath all of these 7 services, we have the OneLake. Microsoft likes to tell this as the one drive for your data. Every service on top of this will actually work with the data in the OneLake in the new Delta Packet format. So a lot of new things to come around, and if you are already well proficient in the Azure Synapse world, then you will be easy transition into Fabric. I see the comments sections is loading with questions, so I hope you can manage to get there, Askia, and reply it. If we try to group these services into sections, and then Stephanie needs to click next, then the first three here on top, the purple one is where we do all the analysis and actions on data. And if we would like to move and transform it, then we use integration, engineering, or warehousing. And the machine learning AI stuff is going on inside data science. And with Fabric, you no longer have to choose on what you need to do when you spin up your Fabric environment and your Fabric capacity, because you will get all of these 7 services in one umbrella, in one service, ready for you to utilize and use to whatever needs you have. This is also called Software as a Service, the SaaS platform. It is a cost-effective offering from Microsoft where you can now begin to budget your data platform usage based on the capacity that you're spinning up. And then you need to add your storage, which is, as I speak right now, $23 per terabyte per month. But that is perhaps a detail that will be later on. So if we move along into the actual portal, then I think it would be easier for me just to show it on my screen. So if we switch to my screen quite quickly, I can show you on how this works inside Fabric. This is my screen. You see it now. I have an empty capacity. It doesn't have anything in it other than things called my workspace, and as I am an admin in this tenant, then I can also see the admin monitoring workspace. This is more or less what I see today if I'm coming from Power BI. The new thing is that all the experiences that I just talked about is now available in your bottom left corner. So if you get lost inside Fabric, your go-to place is the bottom left corner. Click. Right now I'm clicking Power BI, but I could click Data Factory, Data Activator, or something. That icon would be showing up to tell me where I am inside the platform. Then I can go and start whatever main compartment of Fabric I would like to go to, perhaps Data Factory, and then I'll be provided with the easy go-to links to create a data flow or a data pipeline. If I were in the data engineering part, I would have way more options to create a lakehouse, notebook, and so forth and so forth. Some of these things are in preview because they are not yet in GA, and Microsoft is working on their way on getting there. This is now an environment, it's in public preview, so I can test it out. And if I raise a service ticket to Microsoft here, they will just reject it because it is in preview. They will not support it right now. In order for me to actually begin to work inside Fabric, I need to create a workspace. I can, of course, always use my workspace, but a note here to everyone attending. My workspace will sometimes give you errors based on what you want to do. So a rule of thumb here is to always, if you want the full Fabric experience, then create a new workspace. It is the same way as I would create a new workspace in Power BI. This I will call Learn, if I could spell, Learn Together. And in the Advanced tab, I can use the trial capacity. The trial capacity is for free. For 60 days, I can use a trial capacity. It is quite a beefy capacity. It is equal to a P1 from the Power BI Premium sizing. And then I'm actually right now good to go inside Fabric. This was the quick. Sorry, Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. I see up on the top yours says Fabric trial 59 days left. Did you just create it yesterday?
Yes. I just created this tenant yesterday. This will now begin to count down as days go by.
That was a trick question because I created mine about 6 months ago and it still says 59 days. So I think we don't actually know how long we're going to have these trials, but we're hoping Microsoft keeps kicking the can down the road and extending our trials.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I know that there is small hiccups in the countdown, and you are quite right, Stephanie. We don't know we don't know when the actual 60 days will run out. I have a couple of clients in my portfolio that already has used all the 60 days, so they are now forced to buy a capacity, and I still have other clients that are they don't even count down. So yeah.
So hopefully, when you start yours, you'll be one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, hopefully. Why won't this go away? There you go. I think that is the intro for that part. And then if we just quickly switch back to the slide deck, then I'm going to show you on how to build a OneLake. Sorry, not how to build a OneLake, because OneLake comes with Fabric, but what OneLake is. As I said, OneLake is the single point of contact for everything around Fabric on data storage. It is built on top of Azure Data Lake Storage, just with a beautiful UI on top of it. It works with the new Delta Parquet format. Of course, you can also still save CSV, JSON, HTML files, Excel files, and so forth in the OneLake, and Fabric will still be able to work with it. But the default data format for Fabric is now Delta Parquet, the open source Delta Parquet file format. I tend to tell my clients that Delta Parquet, look at it as a CSV file with an enforced metadata structure on column names and column data types, and an additional lookalike column store index. It is not a column store index at all, don't compare it, but look at it as you have a compressed file in CSV format with a given header and data type, and you have it in a compressed format with an index on top for easily extraction of the data and search also. So the Delta was actually developed to help you have one copy of your data and use that in query time to deliver data in your analytics platform. I think that is. Am I missing something here, Stephanie?
I mean, there's a lot on OneLake, right? At
A
first,
lot.
when I started learning about it, I thought, okay, it's just some storage. But no, there's a lot. It's definitely worth exploring more and learning about, especially that standard format. Sorry, the default format the data is stored in, this Delta Parquet. It becomes
Yeah.
really important, and it's really cool. So
Yes, it is.
definitely worth learning more about.
And one final note on that, there is a Windows application for OneLake. So if you have a Fabric and you would like to explore OneLake in your file explorer, you can actually install the OneLake application, and then it will just look like oh, there you go, look like your file explorer, and then you can go through all your workspaces, you can see your files, and you can see your Delta Parquet files underneath that. So
Yep, indeed. So this is exactly what it looks like. So they call it OneDrive for data, and it really does feel like OneDrive for data. So you
yes,
install it, it's right here. You get these folders correspond to your workspaces. And if you dig in a little bit more, you could see that I have a Lakehouse in here. We'll get into this more later, but this is just to show you basically OneDrive for data.
yes. And I think should we see on questions if we have any in the chat? I think we are forwarded some from the producer here. Christian asked, in a warehouse, can we have read-write access? And I was wondering if my colleagues in IT would be able to build a web app in the Fabric warehouse as the backend. Oh, good question. Warehouse is a bit out of scope for this session, but the short answer here is yes, you have read-write access in the warehouse, but building an application where you have small inserts and small writes to the warehouse is not the best idea, because we are still using the Delta Parquet files, and the Delta Parquet files would really, really, really love to have bulk loads of data in order to be most efficient. So the short answer is no, but it depends. Of course, we're all consultants here. It depends on what the web app does. If it does bulk load, then fine. If it does row by row, then I would consider doing it in other ways. Yeah.
Okay, and I see another question about how can we leverage DevOps CI/CD in Fabric? Good news for you. CI/CD is built in to Fabric now. So within each workspace, a number of the objects are supported. So it really simplifies it. So it used to be a much more manual process if you wanted to integrate your Power BI semantic models into DevOps, but now it's there is integration built in. Again, check that roadmap because not all of the objects are supported currently, but they are continually improving that. And then, of course, there's also deployment pipelines for the workspaces. So we could do a whole session just on that, but the short answer is yes, yes, it is built in. It's integrated much easier today than it used to be.
Yeah. And is it 2 weeks ago we were in Las Vegas where we saw Microsoft release way more CI/CD properties in Fabric in some preview features, and when they go live, you will be way more easy to work with DevOps directly with Git actions in Fabric. The keynote is available on YouTube if you search for it, and then you can see the announcement there from CI/CD. So
yeah, and there's also a big blog post about the announcement. So if you prefer to read
yes,
rather than watch the video, you can find that too.
yes.
Maybe just one more question, and then we'll continue.
Yes. There is a multi-tenant question here from another Christian. How can we secure OneLake for multi-tenant scenarios for Power BI embedded customers? Good question. I would go the workspace way because each workspace has its own security setup. So if you have a Power BI embedded for one customer, for one service, one production, then use one workspace for that. If you have a different service in a different Power BI embedded, use another workspace. And if you have one tenant scenarios where you have one workspace, one Power BI report to deliver to different customers, different clients in a built-in embedded scenario, then go back to the row-level security in Power BI, and then you're good to go. Because row-level security will be propagated back to the OneLake for the client not to read the data out. So if you secure it enough. So yeah. But and then again, we are back to I've heard Microsoft talk about the one security feature, which we are still waiting for, all of us. How do we secure our OneLake in an easy manner? I see a good footstep going towards that, but we haven't yet seen what the actual solution will be. So,
Then check the roadmap.
yeah, check the roadmap, please. Once again, check the roadmap. Once again, check the roadmap.
All right,
So,
let's jump back and so we can finish up this module.
yeah. That actually brings us back to data teams and Microsoft Fabric. So data teams in Microsoft Fabric, right now, these might not be the correct names for what you are doing in your organization or what your teams are working with. But so just see this as an example of what the team names could be or what the role names could be. So typically the data engineers would work with data factory, data warehouse, data engineering, and also real-time analytics on moving data, transforming data, cleaning it, making it available for the end users to consume. Then we have the data scientists. They have only one service in Fabric because the yellow marked here is not Fabric native services. Those are services outside of Fabric that you need to spin up yourself in Azure, and then you can always use them in Fabric as a linked service. So data science, of course, for data scientists. Then the data analysts is now being from Microsoft side seen as they are working in the data warehouse and they again working in real-time analytics and the decision makers, the end users are of course using Power BI. And the reason why Microsoft 365 is added here is because we have a full Entra ID collaboration and lookup. So everything around security is based on security groups in Entra ID, and whatever access you need to get to gain to a workspace is based out of your Entra ID and your sign up there. And then of course we have in the bottom our data stewards who mainly would work in Purview, and we also just saw in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago that Purview will be Fabric enabled to be able to help us with all the governance and security inside Fabric out of the box. So look forward for the new version of Purview also. And I think we are on our way to enable Fabric. How do we use Fabric? How do we get it started? You have different ways. It must be enabled on your tenant, either by the Fabric admin, formerly known as the artist, formerly known as Power BI admin, because right now Power BI will be it's just Fabric all over the place. Or if you have a Power Platform admin or Microsoft 365 admin, those three roles in your organization can now go in and enable Fabric on your tenant. Once it is enabled, and if you don't disable it, then everyone will be able to start a trial capacity. So for governance and security purposes, please, when you enable Fabric, go into your Fabric capacity settings, Fabric tenant settings, and disable the trial for everyone and add a security group on who can start a trial. Of course, you can also buy a Fabric capacity out of the box. There are two ways of buying it. You can buy a pay-as-you-go, and then you can buy a prepaid option where you are where you say yes to having that capacity for 3 years. And if you do that, then you'll save around 40% on the list price there. So, and once Fabric is enabled, all of this that you just saw in my workspace will be enabled for everyone to use if they have a Fabric enabled workspace. So, yes. The next thing is enable Fabric. This was I think I was ahead of myself here with the slides. In the tenant settings, then please pay attention to if you have this enabled for the entire organization, then everyone can start a trial for 60 days. So I would encourage you to figure out: do you want everyone to actually create a new Fabric trial, or do we want it as a specific security groups to be able to create new trials, and then those trials can be attached to a workspace? I would highly recommend you to do the last part, because then you are in control of how many trials you have and how many workspaces are on those trials, because those trials will end at some point, and then you will have an organization screaming their lungs out and tearing their hair out because they won't have access to Fabric anymore unless you have bought a Fabric capacity. So please keep in mind that the Fabric trial is only for 60 days, with exceptions that we just discussed a few minutes ago. So,
With that, now it's time to check if we have shared enough information.
Knowledge check.
Yes.
Knowledge check. And all the live attendees, you can now pick up your phone or do it on your webpage, wherever you are, on your laptop, and go to aka.ms/polls, and then you can vote on these questions that we will show you. So, and if you vote in the comments, those votes will not be counted in as votes on this live poll. So please use the poll feature, as we will just show you in a few minutes. So the first question: which of the following is a key benefit of using Microsoft Fabric in data projects? A, it allows data professionals to work in data projects independently without the need for collaboration. Or B, it requires duplication of data across different systems and teams to ensure data availability. Or C, it provides a single integrated environment for data professionals and the business to collaborate on data projects. So which of the following is a key benefit of using Microsoft Fabric in data projects? We'll give you a few seconds to vote.
I'm seeing a lot of votes coming in.
Yeah, I see the vote coming in, and perhaps I helped a bit here on some of the first slides on what the answer could be. And I don't know how many live attendees we have right now, but I see around 90 votes now and counting.
Yep. And I'm looking at the first answer, without the need for collaboration. And that one jumps out at me because we love collaboration, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We want to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling like that one might not be it.
Yeah.
And we talked about one of the benefits of OneLake is that we don't have to make copies of data, right? I think you mentioned that in one of the early slides. So that would not be a benefit. We would not like to require duplication, right?
Yes. Exactly.
So I'm thinking it's C. What do you think?
I'm also into C, and perhaps I said that out loud in the first slide. Please remember this sentence. It might be a good sentence to remember. So let's see what the answer is.
Sorry, I got to jump to the right place here.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
And it
And
is
there we go.
C.
C.
Great.
So
Great.
Fabric provides a single integrated environment for data professionals and the business to collaborate on data projects. So yeah, great. And thank you for all the votes. I see we have more than 600 attendees live on this session, and the vote has now ended, and we got 97.85% of all the voters were on C. So that's great.
Excellent. Yep,
Yeah.
I feel good about that. That's an A.
Yeah.
All right, question 2.
Yes.
I'll read this one. What is the default storage format for Fabric's OneLake? I think Brian gave some clues about this earlier too. Is it A, Delta Parquet, B, JSON, or C, CSV? So we did talk about how all of these are supported, right? They can all be stored in OneLake, but what is the default storage format?
And I can actually also store HTML files, Excel files, all type of files. Picture images is also capable of being stored inside the OneLake service. So, and I see the votes are streaming in.
They're streaming in, and I feel like we've done pretty well. I think
Yeah.
we've also got a solid A on Delta Parquet.
Yeah. So the default storage format for OneLake is Delta Parquet, an open source storage layer, actually. So if you have other services outside of Fabric who needs or who wants to write the data, they can do it because it is an open source Delta Parquet format. So everyone can actually read it. So it's great.
Excellent. All right.
Do
One
you have
more
more
question
questions?
before. Yep, just one more.
Great. Which of the following Fabric workloads is used to move and transform data? So is it data science? That's answer number A. Is it B, data warehousing, or C, data factory? So which of the following Fabric workloads is used to move and transform data? Oh, you are so fast at voting. Wow, it just streams in.
Coming in hot here.
Yeah.
All right.
Coming hot.
This one, we get a little more variety in the answers, I'm seeing.
Yeah, because I could, if I were a data scientist, I could actually use some of the data science services to move and transform the data in a notebook, perhaps.
And if I'm
So
a
that might
data
be a trick
warehouse
question there.
expert, you know, that's a little tricky too.
And so, yeah, and as you said, data warehousing, I could use my T-SQL command knowledge to use the store procedure to move it, but I think Microsoft wants us, yes, to use Data Factory. So Data Factory combines Power Query with the scale of Azure Data Factory to move and transform your data inside Fabric. Great.
That one's always just a little bit trickier.
Yeah. Yes.
But
so should we go and see if we have any questions?
Sure. Just a quick break for questions, because we do have a little bit more content to get through, and I don't want to have to miss any of it. But let's just check if we have one or two.
We have one for you there from Pratik. I get that Fabric brings all the data service under one umbrella. Which limitation does Fabric overcome when compared to the suite of existing data platform services like ADF, ADB, Synapse, and HDI? So do you know that, Stephanie? Do you have a guess on that?
Yeah, two things are jumping out at me. One, with Fabric, it's all software as a service. So there's very little to spin up and configure on your own. And then secondly, because it is all in one nice analytics package, the capacity that you purchase can be used for all of these different workloads. So in the past, for example, you might have to do Azure Data Factory and pay for that separately from your Power BI premium capacity or PPU. Now it all comes together and your different workloads can share these capacities. So I think there are a lot of the investments are to all of these products are going to be going into Fabric. So, I'm just touching on these two that jump out at me right away. But so yeah, number one, all integrated software as a service, simplification. And number two, this kind of shared capacity. So hopefully cost savings as well.
Exactly.
And did you have any to add on to that, Brian?
Yeah, as I said, as when we started this session, I think it is also a good thing for the CFOs because now they can budget what kind of money they will use on the data platform because the Fabric capacity is a fixed price, and And then you can begin to budget what is the actual cost of having a data platform up and running. If you have maybe one capacity or two capacity or three capacities, it is still the same fixed price that you get. So yeah.
And then, as usual, aka.ms/fabric roadmap to see what features are coming and when.
Our go-to thing for looking up what is coming, then the roadmap is the best place to remember. So yes.
Okay. All right. So with that, I definitely don't want us to miss out on Brian's demo. So now let's talk about module 2. So if you're following along, this will be the second module, and this is the getting started with Lakehouses in Microsoft Fabric. So let me just jump right into that. So first of all, what is a lakehouse, right? So historically, we've had our data lakes and we've had our data warehouse. So the foundation of Fabric is the lakehouse, which is built on top of the OneLake storage layer. It uses Apache Spark and SQL compute engines for big data processing. It's a unified platform that combines, on the left, we've got the flexible and scalable storage of a data lake, and on the right, the ability to query and analyze data of a data warehouse. So imagine your company has been using a data warehouse to store structured data, like order history, inventory levels, et cetera. And you've also got unstructured data, social media, website logs, third-party sources that can be difficult to manage and analyze with your data warehouse infrastructure. So you can combine all of these together in a lakehouse because we get all of these features of both. So kind of a best of both worlds scenario. So let's just talk a little bit more about what this is. So within the lakehouse, it presents as a database and it's built on top of a data lake using the Delta format tables. So there's that word again, Delta, right? We really like that. So I mentioned before, this is an important concept to get used to for Fabric, and it's really powerful. So lakehouses combine the SQL-based analytical capabilities of a relational data warehouse with the flexibility and scalability of a data lake. The data is organized in a schema on read format, which means that you just define the schema as needed. You don't have to predefine it like we do in a warehouse. So some other benefits that you can realize with a lakehouse, they support ACID transactions. So that's very important for data consistency and integrity. And they're a single location for data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts to all be able to access and use that data together. So this kind of brings us back to that idea of the one copy. We don't want to have multiple copies of our data for different team members to work on. We'd like to just really have one. So the Lakehouse provides that for us as well. And now I think for me, a big question when I started with Fabric, I come from a traditional SQL background and Power BI. So Lakehouse was a little bit new and scary to me. So this is kind of helpful here. Lakehouse versus warehouse. And I'm actually going to share a link also. There's a very well thought out and well written blog post about the difference between the lakehouse and the warehouse. And, that's a very common first question is, well, which one do I choose? So this slide here, this kind of gives you a nice high-level view of it. Some important things stand out for which one you might choose. And just notice on the bottom left, this short link, aka.ms/fabric notes. There are a lot of these really helpful kind of cartoony high-level slides for these Fabric concepts. So I encourage you to go check those out. They're always adding new ones. It's really great. But back to lakehouse versus warehouse. We can see the types of data that can be stored in them and who might be using them. A primary skill set. So for a lakehouse, it's Spark. But I do want to point out also that I mentioned I come from a SQL background, so Python was new to me. But it's actually pretty easy to get started and it's very powerful. If you do end up getting a Fabric capacity that's F64 or above, not the trial, you also get Copilot. And all of these different copilots can help you quickly ramp up these skills. So you can open up a notebook, hit up Copilot in Fabric and say, help me write some Python to do this thing I want to do. So try not to be intimidated by that. An important thing is how to read data. So with the Lakehouse, you can use Spark and T-SQL, limited T-SQL. But for the warehouse, great T-SQL coverage, right? So if that's your comfort zone, maybe go there. So there's a lot more detail, but I will also share the link to that nice long blog post about kind of the difference between whether you would choose Lakehouse or warehouse. Brian, any input on Lakehouse or warehouse?
I typically get the question on what do I choose between the lakehouse and the warehouse, and not to be funny or try to tell a joke, but I try to tell my clients that you can fit a house on a lake, but you cannot put a lake into a house. So in the matter of images in your head right now, please start with a lake house, and then if you need a smaller delivery somewhere, go to the warehouse. That is my approach. And I know that there are as many approaches as there are humans on the earth today. So it is not a given best practice. It is just what I try to tell my clients. So,
Thank you.
yes.
All right, so next here, let's figure out how do we actually work with a Fabric Lakehouse. So if we want to create one, right, what do we do? So the first step is to be in a workspace. So Brian showed you that. If you come from a Power BI background, this is already going to be very comfortable for you. Everything you're going to build is in a workspace. So within a workspace, it's a very long, complicated process to build a lake house. No, it's not. I'm kidding. I just wanted to see if Brian was awake. It's actually very simple. You just click new lake house and give it a name. It's that easy.
Yes.
So when you do that, you can do that in the data engineering workload. I always get lost within Fabric and knowing which workload I need to be in to create a new item. There are
Mhm.
multiple routes to do it. If you don't see the one you want, you can just click on that little icon in the bottom left, or up on the top, you can say new and more options. You'll get everything. So
Yes.
although that's where it is, you don't have to remember that. All right, so when you create a lake house, this is the storage and the metadata. It's where you interact with the files and the folders and the table data, but it also automatically will create a default semantic model. So you can just quickly create Power BI reports based on that default semantic model. I see we need to update this slide. It still says data set on the bottom, but we'll need to
Yeah.
update the semantic model, which is the new name for data sets.
Yeah.
And then secondly, a SQL endpoint is also automatically created. So even though you're in a lakehouse, if you love SQL, you can just use that SQL endpoint to query the tables in the lakehouse. Very, very comfortable.
But I can only query. I cannot do inserts through the SQL endpoint on the lakehouse.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Right. We cannot do it's a read-only SQL endpoint for those tables in the lakehouse.
Mhm.
Again, join that Delta table session that's on Thursday because you'll see some more ways to update those tables. So you can write Spark SQL if you want to update those tables, just
Yes.
not through the SQL endpoint. So lots of options. You can generally do what you want to do, but you just have to get used to the different methods. So quickly, let's see what these actually look like. So this is what it looks like in a workspace. When you create a new lake house, you can see you've got your lake house, and then underneath it, you automatically get these other two items that are created for you. Okay, so how do we actually get data into a lake house, right? So we've created a lake house now, and now we want to put data into those delta tables because we really like those. Those are very efficient. All of the workloads work really well on those delta tables. So number one, we can just manually upload. So I showed you that OneLake Explorer before, just like OneDrive for data. I could just drag some CSV files right into my Lakehouse through that, or I can upload through the Fabric interface. All right, another method, data flows Gen 2. I love these. So if you have a Power Query background or your team does, if they're comfortable with Power Query, data flows Gen 2 are going to just be a simple transition. They're a great option to add data into your lakehouse that way. One of the benefits of data flows Gen 2 that I really like is that you can simply append new data to a table in a lakehouse. It's not like in Power Query where it overwrites everything. You have the option to either overwrite or append. So that's pretty cool. Another one is notebooks. So if your team is comfortable with Python, they can just simply use notebooks for ingestion and transformation. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. You have a bunch of different ways that you can do it. Finally, you can use the data factory pipelines within Fabric. These allow for only limited transformation, but they're great for orchestration. And you can add other activities onto it. So for example, maybe I wrote or I created a data flow Gen 2. I would like my data factory pipeline to run it and then alert me or move some files around, things like that. So the data factory pipelines can be really helpful there. And then we've got a little bit more detail on, which use case that you might want to use or which use case would be best supported by these different options between the pipelines, the data flow Gen 2, and a notebook. So feel free to, come back to this, pause, check it out, and see all of these different methods that you can use to get your data into a lakehouse. And again, I just want to bring up Copilot one more time because there's Copilot that you can use in a notebook, Copilot for Data Factory, Copilot for Data Flow Gen 2. So if you want to get more comfortable and use any of these other tools, Copilot is going to be really helpful there.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's in, right? We've got data in the lakehouse. So how can we access it? Well, one way is just through the lakehouse, right? So we've put our data in. But what if we have external data? What if we have data somewhere else? So we could have data maybe in different Azure data lake storage, or maybe I have data in another lakehouse somewhere, and I really don't want to copy it, right? This is one of the big benefits of Fabric and OneLake is I'm supposed to be able to have one copy. So this is where shortcuts can come in. Shortcuts are really cool. And again, this is another topic we could have an entire hour devoted to. But shortcuts will allow you to connect to external storage or internal in Fabric. And then you can write your queries on it. You can operate on it as if it is in your lakehouse. The only thing that looks different in the lakehouse is there's a little tiny link icon. So it just looks and feels like it's in your lakehouse, but it's just a shortcut to it. So it's just virtualized. So let me bring in one more Fabric notes for you to see. So again, feel free to go to this aka.ms Fabric notes because this is going to show you a lot of detail on shortcuts. I think this is a really important concept. So make sure you get comfortable with it. Again, you can have the internal shortcuts. So between lakehouses or from a warehouse table to a lakehouse table or a KQL database to a lakehouse folder. So all of these internal shortcuts. Great use case for this. Maybe you've got a standard list of stores and you don't want to have to copy that from one workspace to another just to make it accessible. So you can just make a shortcut. And then we've got the external ones. So the plans are to add more sources for external shortcuts, but right now you can have ADLS Gen 2 or AWS S3. I think Google is coming. There's also Dataverse. So keep an eye on that roadmap because there will be more shortcuts available. So any questions quickly here on shortcuts, lakehouse versus warehouse, any of these? Brian, do you see any questions?
No, I don't see any questions yet. There's a
This
question.
one's for
What is a
you,
KQL
actually.
database? Oh,
Your favorite, right?
my favorite. Yeah, KQL database is the Kusto query language database. It is the underlying database used for real-time analytics, and it is. I can talk hours and hours about the KQL database, but look at it as the destination, the default destination for all of your streaming data, IoT devices, telemetry, logging, whatever things that you are coming in streaming. Save them in the KQL database, and then you have a extremely powerful database to use for all your time series data. So that was the extremely short version. I can talk hours and hours about that. So yeah. And another question: how to get on-prem data into OneLake? Ooh. There are two ways, and we just got another one in Las Vegas.
Yes. So currently data flows Gen 2. But when you said we just got another one from Las Vegas, were you talking Data Factory?
No, we are now in Fabric getting access to on-premise data from the on-premise data gateway.
I thought that was for data flows Gen 2. Did I just get mixed up?
You can also now, when it is released in Fabric, you can also do it in Data Factory. So.
Okay, super. Yes. So yes, I think that the person who asked this question also answered it for themselves. So I guess the answer is yes.
Exactly. Data Factory, yes, when it is released in the on-premise data gateway and in Fabric. And right now, the default one is Dataflow Gen 2. So, yes. And then this last one, shortcuts just supported in warehouses, also in Lakehouse. It is actually the other way around. Shortcuts is only supported in Lakehouses and not in warehouses. So yeah.
You can shortcut to a warehouse.
Yeah, you can shortcut from a warehouse into a lakehouse, but you can't shortcut from a lakehouse to a warehouse. So yeah.
Got it. Awesome. All right. So now I think enough chit chat, right? Let's have show us the exercise for module 2.
Yes, and if we don't switch right now because I have issues with there you go. I think we're ready to switch to my laptop again, and then I can run you through the actual exercise. On my left here, on my right, I hope it's still on your right side, I have the guidance on the how to get started with Lakehouse in Microsoft Fabric. And if I scroll down, this is the complete module. And I would like to run you through this exercise. It now says it takes 30 minutes, but I bet you I can do it faster. I will not just run through it, but you will still be able to maintain to keep up, because we only have like 30 minutes to go, and we still have one Q&A and a few slides to go through. So if I click this, then I will also launch the exercise, and then we can get started. Create a lakehouse. Right now, I need to create a lakehouse in order to get started. I already created the workspace. I did that on the first short demo here, and the workspace is now learned together. The workspace, it is quite empty. So now I need to create a lakehouse. So in the Synapse Data Engineering homepage, so I switch to Data Engineering. Then at the top here, I will see the Lakehouse option. I can create the Lakehouse, and this Lakehouse, I will just call it Lakehouse for the easy thing here. The name here could be whatever name you have, but please keep in mind that you cannot have spaces in that name, no matter what you do. So the Lakehouse name is just a single line of text without spaces. I'll create this, and it takes a few seconds for it to create it and to create the SQL Service endpoint and to create the storage underneath it. And now it is trying to load it. And if I'm quick enough, I'll try to show you this. If I'm quick enough, yes, you will actually be able to see that I have 2 icons showing me the Lakehouse. If I were even quicker, I would actually be able to see 3 icons, because it spins up some temporary stuff, which it then deletes again. So if I were quick enough, I could actually show you several icons here, and then they would be removed as we go along and the things are deploying. If I go to the top, I will see the notifications here, and the notification not deleted, and not that one, but it would show me that the SQL Server endpoint was created, and the Lakehouse are now ready to rock and roll. So if I then scroll down here, then I will be guided to my tables folder and my files folder. The files folder is where there you go, successfully created the SQL Analytics endpoint. So now I'm able to query that. I'll show you that in a minute. The files folder is where I can now upload files to my OneLake, either through the get data and then upload files, or I can do a drag and drop from the OneLake application that Stephanie just showed you a few minutes ago. The tables folder I cannot do anything about. I can only move data from my files into the tables, or load data from Dataflow Gen 2 or Data Factory or Notebook or something into my tables folder, because the tables folder contains pointers to the Delta Parquet files in the OneLake. I'll show you that in a minute. So now I need to upload the file. I've already cheated a bit, so this file CSV was already downloaded. I already downloaded it. In order to download it, just don't click on it, because then you'll be shown the default, just the content of the CSV file. Right click and select Save Link As, and then you'll be downloading the CSV file. You can also get the CSV file from this link right here. I'm saving it. And then in the files, I need to create a new subfolder. And that subfolder is just called data. Great, I can do that. In the data folder, I will now upload a file. Get data, upload files. Here I'm getting a standardized browse capability. So if I click this icon, then I will be guided into my downloads folder. And I already created a downloads folder. And this is the sales.csv file that I downloaded just before we started this live session. Let me open that one. And if the sales file is already existing in my OneLake, I can now choose to override it, but it's fine. It is only 3 megabytes, and there you go. So now the file is, if I refresh, there you go. Go. It uploaded to the wrong place. Great. Let's try again. Upload, files, sales, open, upload. There you go. Now the file is in the correct place. Then there is shortcuts. How do we do a shortcut? Well, in the ... menu for files, right there, I can create a new shortcut. Then I'm guided into a wizard, and the lab now, or the exercise tells us just look at it and then close it. But I'll actually show you how I create a shortcut. I'll create it to an existing workspace on my OneLake, and let me just show you where I need this from a lakehouse, and that lakehouse is my data from. Let me just pick this one next. In the tables, I have customers. I'll select the customers table right there, and then I'll click next. Then it tells me, then it will create a shortcut name called customers, and it points to another lakehouse called tables.customers, and then you're good to go. Now, as you see right there, I hope this is zooming also. This is now, this small icon with a link on it is showing me that this is a shortcut, and things that are not shortcuts is just ordinary folders. So now the customers table from the other workspace I had is now a part of my workspace in my Learn Together workspace. So now I have a shortcut. So I actually breached out of the learn exercise here and helped you a bit. Now we need to load the sales CSV file into the table. So from the data file, I select the 3-dot menu, select load to tables into a new table. That table is now still called sales, and I use the header for column names because in the CSV file, it contains headers as the first line, and the separator here is comma. Typically, Fabrick will try to read the separator out of the file. If it gets it wrong, just correct it here, and then you're good to go. Then I'll load it. This load takes, mysteriously, even though it's only 3 megabytes, it takes a while for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. While it does that, I not just need to talk, and we need to fill out the time because it is now loading those 3 megabytes into a Delta Parquet file in the Lakehouse in the tables folder. And it is only 3 megabytes. And are we done? Let me see. No, it is still loading. So can we have a question? Oh, there you go. Wow, that was quicker than I expected. Now the sales is a part of the tables in the Lakehouse. And if I just,
I always want to point out that little black triangle on there, that's not an error. The first time I saw it, I thought, oh, that looks like a, yeah, that just means delta. That's a good thing. So when you see that little black triangle, you're happy about it, not sad.
You might see, if you are too fast and too impatient, then you might see a different folder down here saying unsupported tables. But just wait, it will remove itself and be transformed into the sales table in this example as sales. I just clicked the sales table here, and now I can begin to see an example of my data that I have in my sales table, in my Delta Parquet file in the OneLake. And to show you that I can use SQL to query my tables, when you create a lakehouse, it defines a default SQL endpoint. It is automatically created when I got it. That was why I waited for the notification on the SQL endpoint is now created. So if I go back to my there in the top, I can now either choose the Lakehouse or the SQL Analytics endpoint. The SQL Analytics endpoint gives me a sort of a SQL Server Management or Azure Data Studio lookalike view on my data, and it has a schema. The default schema right now is DBO. 2 weeks ago, they also announced the support for custom schemas in Lakehouses, so that will also come. And I can now again get a select statement out of my data. But if I would like to write my own things, I can just hit the query pane here, and I can do a select top 10 from DBO sales, and I can run it. And I got an error. Why did I do that? Star. There you go. Sorry for that. And then I get the top 10 rows of my sales table here. And hit the run. There's also another way that is a visual query that is completely new. But if you are somewhat okay with Power BI, you will recognize some of this from your work with Power BI, because the new visual query is actually more or less what you would expect to get out of Power BI. So if I have a new visual query and I can drag and drop that table, the sales table, into my visual query, and then lo and behold, there you go. Now things are beginning to look exciting here. Let me remove that so we get a bit more white space. This looks like what I can do in Dataflow Gen 2 and also in Power BI. And now I can begin to modify my sales table as I see fit by using my mouse, and then I'll generate Power Query, T-SQL underneath it for the SQL engine to actually use and execute. So in the manage columns here, I will choose my columns and I will select only the sales order number and sales line number. I think that's what it wants us to do. And then I'll click OK. There you go. And then I need to go to the transform and group by. So group by sales order number, that's fine. So the new column name is line items. Oops, sorry.
Just like Power Query.
Sorry?
It looks just like Power Query.
Exactly. It looks like Power BI. It's just easy, easy, easy. So I need to count distinct values. That is that one. And the column is sales order line number. So I think you're good to go. Let me hit OK and see what happens. So we are a bit squeezed in here, but I hope you can see it, that the sales order line number 143526876 has one line item each on it. So not the best demo here, but I think you get the point that I can now use my mouse to do data manipulation on my data using Power Query or Power BI lookalike engine. So great. Of course, I can also create a report based on the default semantic model. I can see my default semantic model if I hit the model pane in the bottom here. Let me remove the properties so we get a bit more white space, and let me zoom out a bit. The first thing you will see is, hey, I have 4 tables. I only loaded 1. Yes, because these 3 tables are standard metadata dynamic management views that you get out of every warehouse and lakehouse to query what is happening on your lakehouse. So see this as maintenance or discovery or governance or whatever you call it, objects for you to discover. So my real table that I loaded was called sales, and it is right there for me to build a Power BI report on top of. And the guide tells me, whoops, I need to go there, sorry. In the reporting tab, then I can select a new report. That is right there. In the reporting tab, hit new report. Create a new report with all available data. Yes, I would like to do that because I only have 1 table. That's fine. And just without ever touching Power BI desktop, Fabrick will now help me create a report with the sales table enabled, loaded into the report. And we are a bit small on white space here, so let me remove a bit so you can see what is happening here. And do they want us to drag something? Item and quantity. Then I get a table. Let me zoom a bit so you can see it. This is the table. This is the item. Oh, sorry. This is the item. And then you have the sum of quantity in a standardized Power BI report right there without ever doing anything about it. And in the visualizations pane, they want us to do a clustered bar chart. Is that one? There you go. So now it looks more like the demo and the lab, and we are now good to go. Then I can save it, file, save, and they want us to call it item sales report. Oops. Sorry, not there, but in this folder right there, learn together, enter a name for a report. So that was the way, item sales report. Save it. Now it is saved in my workspace, and I am guided directly back to my now released Power BI report for anyone to use. I can now select the link from this and send it to my peers, and then they can start to analyze the data that they would like to do. And then they would love for us to clean up the resources. I'll not do that. I'll do that later when we are done here. But the guide will then show you how to remove your items and remove your workspace, so you don't have anything laying around for demo purpose. I'll do that afterwards. So I hope this helped you. In only 10 to 12 minutes, we managed to get through a 30-minute lab and exercise. I hope it was not too fast. So let's see what's on the slide for the last part of this session.
Okay, super.
Oh, we already have a knowledge check.
Yeah. Yep, we just have a knowledge check. We have 3 more questions, and then we can hopefully answer a couple questions and wrap up.
Great.
So
what do you want to do now? Questions. Great.
Yep. Okay, so question 4 for the knowledge check. What is a Microsoft Fabrick Lakehouse? Is it a relational database based on the Microsoft SQL Server database engine? B, a hierarchy of folders and files in Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2? Or C, an analytical store that combines the file storage flexibility of a data lake with the SQL-based query capabilities of a data warehouse? So how are we doing on getting cool? Okay, we've got some votes coming in.
If we think back, then a relational database based on the SQL Server database engine, yes, we saw that it looked like the SQL database engine, but I think we are a bit misled there if we think it's a SQL Server.
Right.
And it could also be a hierarchy of folders. Yes, I can create folders, and I can create folders and folders, but then it is just folders and files in the data lake. So I would guess C here. I don't know.
You would be right, and it looks like a lot of people here also came up with the correct answer. So awesome! And if you did not, don't worry. That's what we're here for. We're trying to learn all this together.
Yes. And I see we got almost 95% of the voters voted C, so we're good to go.
Great. All right, so we're doing great.
I think I need to tell you again that all the votes in the chat is not counted in these votes, so please use the voting mechanism on your phone or your desktop, wherever you are.
Question 5.
Yeah. You want to include data in an external Azure Data Lake Store Gen 2 location in your lakehouse without the requirements to copy the data. What should you do? Wow. Create a data pipeline that uses copy data activity to load the external data into a file, create a shortcut, or create a data flow Gen 2 that extracts the data and loads it into a table. So what do you need to do in order to get data from an external Azure Data Lake Gen 2 into your lakehouse without the requirements to copy the data? The votes are streaming in. I love it. So, and I think we are a bit helped here in the question. So without the requirement to copy the data, and the first answer is copy data, so we don't need to do that. And C is also a copy because it extracts and loads it into a table. So we are copying both A and C. So without even knowing the correct answer, I could actually get the answer just by logical thinking based on the question here. So I would guess B.
And that is correct. Yes. And so remember, you can always go back to those aka.ms/fabric notes. There was that great slide on shortcuts. So if you kind of haven't been clear yet on what shortcuts are, jump over there and learn a little bit more about shortcuts. All right, last knowledge check question. Question 6. You want to use Apache Spark to interactively explore data in a file in the Lakehouse. What should you do?
Ooh.
A, create a notebook. B, switch to the SQL endpoint mode. Or C, create a data flow Gen 2.
Hmm.
Let's see. So we want to use Spark to interactively explore data. So let's see, exploring data, um, that's not what I do with the data flow Gen 2, right? That's
No.
for transforming data. So I'm going
Yes.
to scrap that one. So do I want to use SQL endpoint or a notebook? SQL endpoint, that's going to be T-SQL. So I think I
Mhm.
can maybe eliminate that one. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think too, but I could also be misled again because the SQL endpoint mode looks like that it just reads the file from the Lakehouse. It also does that, but it does not use Apache Spark. So I will go with A again. Yeah,
Right. How did we do? How did our attendees do here?
92% of the voters would also vote A. So they are excellent. Our attendees.
Super.
Yeah, great.
Okay, that's great to know. Okay. All right. So then with that, I think we just have a summary. So we can wrap up and then
Mhm.
I think we just have a couple minutes left for questions.
Yes.
So quickly to summarize what we went over today. We did module 1 where we described end-to-end analytics in Fabric. We got an overview of Fabric. We learned how different data teams can work together, and we learned how to enable those Fabric features. So um, definitely get that trial going if you haven't, so that you can get that 60 days and enable these features and jump in. And then in module 2, we described core features and capabilities of a lakehouse in Fabric. We created a lakehouse, we ingested data into files and tables, we talked about shortcuts, and we queried with SQL. So that's a great overview to help get you started. And so, you can always go back, like we said, jump back to these sessions,
Yes.
complete the exercises, watch some more videos, and apply your new skills.
Yeah, and
So
keep visiting them because they will perhaps release new modules as we go along. So
indeed, and do that Cloud Skills Challenge. Get the exam voucher. Don't
Mhm.
miss the next section. This is going to be
Tomorrow,
super helpful tomorrow. And you said maybe our friend Nicola is doing that one.
I think I saw something on LinkedIn today that he will be joined by another. I think it was
Okay, that'd be
Heine,
great.
perhaps
Super.
tomorrow. So yeah, great.
Yep, I don't want to miss them.
Me too.
And then again, here is the upcoming schedule for the rest of them.
Yes.
Just just register for them all. They're all going to be great. Get all your questions answered. And then a quick reminder on getting that discount code with the Cloud Skills Challenge. Um, so we do have a few minutes for questions. I also want to make sure that we thank everybody, definitely our moderators and our
Yes.
producer, in case I forget at the end. I'm really appreciative of everybody who joined today.
Yeah.
Um,
And our moderators is trying to juggle more than 600 live attendees right now. So
yes,
thank you to both Askia and I forgot her name. Sorry. Oh,
Rubayat?
yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yes,
thank you both for your moderation skills there. So, should we take a question?
definitely.
Can we do DAX query in Power BI report, which is directly coming from Lakehouse?
We do a DAX query in a Power BI report.
Hmm.
So connecting a Power BI report to the Lakehouse. Okay, so we
Hmm.
didn't talk today about direct lake mode.
No.
That's an awesome feature with Fabric for Power BI. That is definitely something I think it gets covered in some of these modules. So with direct lake mode, you are not relying on import anymore in Power BI. You just access that data directly
Mhm.
from the Lakehouse, which is really cool. So yes, you can write DAX queries against it. But one of the things I really love is that I'm not limited to DAX queries. I have a love-hate relationship with DAX. So if I can query those tables with SQL or Python, I might prefer that. And that's what the Lakehouse really opens up for us. Now we can all query those tables in whatever language we like best. So the answer is yes, you can, but
Indeed.
you can also query it with other tools as well.
And perhaps on a side note there, the full DAX feature set is available in Power BI, no matter if you're using Fabric or or Power BI Desktop. So yes. So the second question, can I edit title, x-axis, y-axis, names, and so forth in the created report? If I were to answer that myself, then yes. Microsoft is doing a great deal on getting all the UI experience, UX experience from Power BI Desktop into Fabric. So you can edit your report as you would in desktop. There's a few differences between desktop and the web view right now, and they are working their minds and fingers off in coding speed to try to narrow that difference down. But the main things as title, X and Y axis and so forth, you can edit those directly in the web UI. So.
All right. Do you really need a company ID to test Fabric? I tried with a personal ID and it does not like it. I don't have the link handy, but I think you can get an M365 developer account
Yes.
to start up a trial with Fabric.
Yes, I think I can. If you talk a bit, I can find the link in a few seconds.
Okay, yeah, and I did hear that some people were having some challenges with that, but that is the route that you can take. I'm not sure the status of it right now, but up until a couple months ago, that definitely worked. Okay, so Brian's got a link that he can share.
Yeah, I just shared
so
it, and
yeah.
then our producer will share it in the live chat. So
Okay.
this chat is the customer digital. Sorry, this link is the customer digital experience from Microsoft, where you need to sign in. You can use your personal account, and then you can create a demo tenant that will be live. I think, if I remember it right, or else correct me, it is 30 days or 60 days. Then you can play around with it. You get a full Microsoft E5 license. You get a full tenant, a demo tenant, and it is live for now 30 or 60 days. And
That's free, right?
Yeah. For free,
Yeah, so
entirely free. Yes.
Yeah, no cost with that then.
No.
Okay, I don't see any more questions.
No. Do we have the last slide, perhaps?
This is the last slide, actually, which
Okay.
is
We
the
already went
Cloud
through
Skills
it. Okay.
Challenge. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, yeah, again, thank you so much, moderators, and Matt, our awesome producer.
Yes.
Go out there, everybody. Go to that Career Hub page. That's where you're going to find all the links to the resources for the exam, all the modules. And thank you from me. And Brian, anything you want to say?
I would also like to say thank you for all the live attendees. Thank you for all your questions, and thank you to our moderators, because they have done a great deal. And also thank you to our producer, Matt. And then I'll just wave as we started, saying thank you and goodbye, and have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are in the world. Bye.